In this video, I'm going to show how to make part of this part. I probably won't go into details of everything here, like making the fixture, that's all covered in other videos. But the interesting thing about this one is this little flat face right here. This sort of thing is much easier if you have a 5-axis machine to work with, because you can just rotate your 2 rotary axis to this face angle and then just cut flat, right? So it makes things a lot easier. I'm assuming this is going to be cut on a 4-axis machine, so it's just in A-axis. So it makes things a little bit harder, but if you plan out the fixturing, it's not that much harder actually. So the first thing we're going to have to do is rotate the part or a coordinate system or something so that that face is kind of flat like this, okay? So then we can rotate the A-axis and we have access to basically the entire part, and we can rotate the A so this is flat, so then we can just cut this flat, okay? So right now it's not oriented like that, it's just oriented, if I do a top view, it's oriented so that these bolt holes are in line with each other. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's just, over here we're going to insert a translate instruction and select our solid. We're actually going to rotate the whole part rather than a coordinate system in our stock workpiece or something like that. But there are multiple ways to do this. We're just going to rotate the entire thing. So we're going to add a plane alignment, and then in here we're going to drop the selection filter down and select an edge. And what we're going to do first is set our origin. Right now our origin is kind of in the center of this part. I'm just going to select this as our origin right here. Okay, so basically we would set this as our 0. And then I'm going to click on select x-axis vector, okay? And then I'm going to select this line right here. I can close this down. And this is not quite right. This is what happens in some cases is you can't really tell which direction this line is going in. So it's actually backward. It's selected it the wrong way. So that's why our part is flipped over. If we do a bottom view, it's actually right? This is now flat with the x-axis, but we want this to be the top view. And actually, don't really have to. We can leave it like this. I would just prefer to look at the top part as this side of the part over here. So what we can do is just come back over here to our plane wizard and just say flip the x-axis. And then we should be able to do a top view, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, so our origin is over top of this circle like we selected, and this face is now flat in line parallel to the x-axis. Okay, so that makes things a lot easier. So now we can just start programming. Let's just do one kind of simple, quick operation where we just do a pocket cut on this entire flat surface, basically the entire part over here, and then we'll get into programming this face. So we'll just insert a pocket, and we select a chain. We'll just do this outside chain right here. And we're going to tell the chain that we do not want it to find islands. It's already set to false, so that's good. So if I calculate that, it's now going to start with the starting material out here and go to this chain that we selected. But that's not what we want. We actually want it to start at this chain we selected and go in from there. So the way we do that is the tool comp side, we can change it from right to left. Okay. And then refresh our toolpath, and now it's on the inside. Our tool is kind of big for this part. It's set to 3/8. We'll just go ahead and leave it for now, but that's a little bit big. So our starting chain, just like we selected the chain to cut, we're also going to select the starting chain as location to start from. So now we can refresh our toolpath, and it's going to start from the outside and go in. We don't have any islands right now, right? Because we told it to ignore the islands. Let's actually try this. Let's go ahead and just tell it that we do want it to find the islands. I don't really know what's going to happen. What I'm concerned about is that it may find these that are actually below the surface. It might consider those to be islands. Let's just see. Okay, and that actually seemed like it worked out okay. That did not consider this to be, or these recessed holes to be considered islands, so it's okay. I think what we're going to do now is switch this over to a smaller tool. This is a really small part. 3/8 is kind of big. So let's just change this over to, it looks like I don't really have anything set up. Let's change this over to 1/4 inch, but we don't want a ball end mill. So let's just for now, we're just going to change our ball end mill to a flat bottom end mill. Okay. Okay, that's looking a lot better. And let's change our step over. Change it to 50 thou just to get us something a little bit more toolpath line so we can better see what's going on. Okay, so that looks good. So now let's go ahead and program the more difficult part. That's this face right here. And what we're going to do here is you could cut it from this side and just cut with the bottom of the end mill. It's actually a little bit more complicated because you have to, there's no like straight edge on this side over here. So you'd have to generate that. You have to actually create some geometry, which is doable, but I think it's actually easier to cut this with the side of the end mill. It's probably better because the side of the end mill, it's probably just going to be a little bit more rigid and give you a better finish. So we're just going to come along and set the A-axis up like this and cut straight across and cut this with the side of the end mill. So let's insert a profile instruction. And then under here we have our working face. And the working face is, it works along with the working origin, except the working face is it determines which angle the A-axis is going to rotate to in order to perform this operation. So if we leave it on default, it's just going to use the working origin, which is 0 degrees. So it's basically this flat surface is going to be up. Our Z-axis is facing straight up, so it's going to orient the A-axis at 0 degrees. Now if we come over here and we select this face, well, now you can see if I click on profile, we kind of get this secondary tool or coordinate system display here. You can see it's at this the angle of this face here. So that means it's actually going to rotate the A-axis to this angle. And I can just do a dry run. It's hard to see that in the toolpath simulation because you don't have a digital readout. But if I tell it to run, you can see that it's going to rotate to 81 degrees. Okay, so that's what I expect. Okay, and let's also change this over to 1/4 inch. Okay, and so you can see it rotated the 81 degrees, and you can see that our tool is parallel to the surface. I actually have not selected any geometry yet, so it just rotates to this angle. It doesn't do anything. So what we would do next is come over here to our chains and just pick. Actually, I forgot one thing. We actually don't, since we're going to cut with the side of the end mill, we don't want the tool to be oriented like this. We want it to be actually 90 degrees around the x-axis. So we want to come over here to our working face, and just in our x-axis we're going to rotate around the x 90 degrees. So we're going to rotate the face around the x 90 degrees one time. So now if I click on it, you'll see that the z is actually parallel to this face. Okay. So now if I tell that to run, you should see that that's exactly the orientation of the tool that we want. Okay. So now we can select our geometry. So now we come over here and just click on this edge to cut, and then hit OK, and refresh our toolpath. And that's close to what we want, right? That's actually just, let's simulate that. The tool is going to come down and cut straight across. Now, of course, we have to go down to depth. We're not at depth here, but that's really close to what we're looking for. So now the last step here is we're going to right click on the profile and say select depth plane. Okay. And this part can be a little bit confusing to know what to select. It's really important to select something that's either parallel or perpendicular to the face that we're working on. So like if we selected this face right here, kind of the main face, yeah, we do want to cut down to that face, but where on that face do we want to cut down to? Right? Since this is at a 9-degree angle relative to this face here, of course, where you are in the y-axis is going to be a different depth. So that can be a little bit confusing. So we're going to select the edge, a 3D edge, and we're going to actually pick this kind of arc edge right here. And I know that the lowest point in there is exactly where we want to go to. Now that's not selecting our geometry, that's just selecting our depth. And all that does when I selected that is it just enters in this number of negative 2.392, which really, if you want to look at what that number actually means, it's actually the distance from this edge right here along this face down to there. And that's not in the z-axis, it's actually along that face, okay? So that's good. So then we can go ahead and take this all in one cut. So right now we have 100,000 step down, so we'll just make this a big number, so it just goes all the way down to depth. And that's looking good. The one other thing I'm going to do is change the lead-in type from a radius. We're going to change this to extend, and then recompile our toolpath. And yeah, it's really going to give us what we're looking for. So we can go ahead and simulate that. Okay, and that's looking good. That's just going to come along here and just cut that with the side of the tool. Now, a couple things you have to be kind of conscious of here. You know, we're going to cut this so that the edge of the tool, the edge of that 1/4 inch tool is exactly on this face right here. So when you do something like that, you've got to make sure that everything else is cut exactly, that this face right here is cut exactly to depth, and that your tool lengths are all set exactly, really accurately to a 1/10 or something like that. And if you don't do that, half of the time you're going to get a small, like a gouge or a little mark where that tool runs across here, just along this face right here, just the edge of that tool. So what you might want to do is just back this depth off a little bit. If you just come over here and just type in +1 thou, then you have a little bit of room where if you didn't pick up your tool lengths right or didn't cut this face exactly right, it's not going to touch this face here, and you'll never see that 1 thou right here in this corner, right? So it's not going to cut exactly down to this corner here, but it's probably okay. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Thanks.